many times you as a director just have to learn how to be calm and absorb.
Honestly, every genre has been done. Every take has been done, because the only thing different in this entire thing is you and your take.
You got an acting offer pretty early on.
Worst decision of life, yeah, Smriti. I could have been a hero.
It was really hard. It was really hard because a couple of months, like, okay, where are my friends? So I was like, what happened? Please, somebody help me, you love me.
Here we go to the nerd alert part. For the sake of brevity and for the sake of your understanding, I've taken the liberty to use a tool using steel plates. Really, I don't have a geometry box to make a chart. Do not laugh, please. Be kind.
Welcome to DialMForFilms. She is one of the best still photographers in the industry, but photography was not Ishika Mohan Motwane's passion. Her father, an Air Force pilot, is an avid photographer. So Ishika grew up with cameras around her. After dabbling with wanting a career as a pilot, a marine biologist, working on the side as a part-time dog walker, she left to study photography at the Santa Monica College in 1998. That is where the learning and the curiosity began. She kept going back for multiple semesters to experiment with technique, form, and formats. In the middle of these semesters, she even managed a small working stint with leading photographer Atul Kasbekar. Her course in Santa Monica College and the work stints in between gave her a solid foundation to build something on. She came back and took on small assignments that came her way, but everything changed when in 2001, Sanjay Leela Bhansali, who was making Devdas at the time, called her to come on his sets. Nearly 2 decades later, Ishika continues to find joy being in the center of the on-set madness. She has shot for top-of-the-line projects like Devdas, Veer-Zaara, Slumdog Millionaire, $1 Million Arm, Wake Up Sid, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, Tararampam, Udaan, Phillauri, NH10, Lootera, Sacred Games, Extraction, and has a long-standing portrait series with Platform Magazine. Welcome to DialMForFilms, Ishika. Thank you for making the time for us.
Thank you for having me, Smriti. I love your look. You're looking lovely, as usual.
Look at you. I have a feeling that like people will think we've coordinated this. We are fully patterned. Listen, I actually, Ishika, wanted to start this session because you're the first still photographer. I'm so happy that we are starting with you. You're the first still photographer to come on the series. And I've always been fascinated by the work that you do. Very few people know that you're also an actor. You did a brilliant short film directed by Atul Mongia. And that was your acting debut, though you were supposed to kind of make your debut with Vikramaditya Motwane's Udaan. You play, Ronit Roy's wife in the film, and there are some stills there, but we don't have them right now. I wanted to begin by asking you something really basic, which is, but I think there's clarity needed there. What does a still photographer do on a film set?
Yeah, good question. So I think primarily I think photography on set started off very basic in terms of, at least over here. Of course, we had like brilliant photographers who were documenting on, the race films and all of those, that beautiful era. And then slowly started becoming more about documentation, for continuity. You had photographers coming on board to make sure that, whatever your set was, stayed the same for the next scene if you shot it again or if you had to reshoot or there was patchwork. And they began doing what they known as continuity photographers. And what their job was on set was to go continue. Oh, what's happened? Am I still here?
No, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, something happened, so I suddenly got a thing about.
Not a problem. We are. This is new technology. We are all kind of making do with internet connections, and we are chatting on Zoom, which is a first in any case. So carry on.
It was, I think, essentially continuity sort of images that they had to document going through a whole series of a film schedule, and then slowly. I think it started changing. But as being a continuity photographer, you started doing a little bit more, and I think there was a little more importance given to stills on set. Over here, a lot later than I think what was being done internationally. Over here, it started taking a little more form to have images from the set to be used for PR, for publicity, and even probably, you had them for your posters eventually. And I think it's essentially about documenting the film. It's about having the first look out there. You're also, I think, at the end, you're bringing out an emotion of the film that's being shown to an audience for the first time. Before the teasers, before the trailers, and all those things, you always have like a first look, and I think it's about bringing that out for them, to have that first look, to see what the film is about, to get that emotion there. At least that's the way I look at it. I mean, I was luckily not needed for continuity. I think I came in at a great time when I didn't know the whole continuity thing, and I also really didn't like it because I didn't want to just do something and document and stand over and just document a set, document a napkin or a staircase or whatever. And I think I came at a time where things were changing. There was I was lucky to have Sanjay as my first director on a feature film, who just said, just come and we'll see kya hota hai. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I said, I don't even know what he's saying. So I asked Vic, I said, what am I supposed to do? And I went in with the camera, and I think and eventually you find your way, and it became important to have an image that represents the film. I think essentially that's the answer.
Coming to your first project, I mean, I was just thinking about it because, obviously we are looking at it from the outside. Devdas was one of the biggest projects at that point of time. Sanjay Leela Bhansali, Shah Rukh Khan, Aishwarya Rai, Madhuri Dixit. You were working with some of the biggest names. What I wanted to know was that it was the first assignment that you did, the first on-set assignment. What were the first 10 days like, and what was the brief that was given to you?
So first, there was no brief, and that's what I'm saying. That I was, I think I came at a time, and I was lucky to not get a brief in a sense. Sanjay had enough issues of his own to make the film. Giving me a brief for the last of his,
He's like, अब इसको भी brief देना पड़ेगा, कैसे करेंगे?
So I remember going on set, taking my 2 cameras, taking a bunch of rolls, and at that time I was shooting film, and I was extremely nervous going on that film set because I had never been on a feature film before. I hadn't been exposed to the world of films, production. With Atul, I was a little exposed to publicity shoots which were done afterwards, but being in a big space with so many people, having a responsibility, realizing that maybe there's something that's expected of you to deliver. So I had actually no idea, which I think maybe became my became my strength in a sense, because I had to sort of find my own way, and I had to. I was also extremely nervous and shy because I found out that Binod Pradhan was shooting in, and I was like, I used to love Jani Vido Yaro as a film, and I was like, there's no way I'm standing with a camera next to him because he's gonna be like, Kish, like aise pakadta hai. So I used to hide behind places, and I used to stand at the back, and I used to be more of an observer in terms of watching what was going on and figuring my way. And I just didn't want to be in the way. That was my biggest fear of also being in the way of camera. There's lights, there's equipment. Everybody's really possessive about the equipment on set. It was like, light ko mat hatao, ye camera ko, don't sit on that box. That's the lenses, and so you're just like, what do I do? I'll just like go hang like plaster myself on the wall somewhere. And I think that's where the whole thing became of me trying to be, invisible or inconspicuous or whatever you want to call it, but to find and do my work without being in the way, without being heard, without being seen. And I think I literally, it wasn't, I really, I think I kept away from the stars in a sense because I was, I didn't know how to, react or be or have a relationship or any of that kind. So I would just quietly do my work from the circumference on the outside and slowly, find my way maybe under something or in between, like under some skimmer ka chatar or somewhere where I'm not visible. To be visible was a
Yeah, we have a picture of you under a table. I was like, how a still photographer can come out of anywhere? And of course, you might have predicted COVID in this photograph because we have you covering your face with a mask. And there's that picture of you under the table and you're trying to click a photograph. And, that's just beautiful. Taking off from what you were saying, that one of the first things that you wanted to do was you wanted to be in the background. You didn't want to get in anyone's way because you felt everyone has very important jobs on that set, and the last thing you want to do is disrupt anyone. But when you were finding your way around that invisibility, that let me do my job and let me be invisible, what are the things that you learned on the Devdas set? Because it was the first time that you were on a set and you were also dealing with, like, you might not have spoken to the stars, the actors, but there had to be some effort or something that you would have had to do to find a comfort level so that you can capture them in moments that you wanted to capture them in. So if you can speak a little bit about, that entire experience as to how you found your feet as a professional and what are the things that you learned when you were working on Devdas?
So I think for me, it was, I like documenting to begin with. I mean, I came with that love of going out on the street or going, randomly someplace and then documenting it in a very photojournalistic way is what I thought I liked. And I also thought I would be in the wildlife somewhere, National Geographic. So I always wanted to take things on the fly. I wanted to catch a moment. For me, that was important. And that was the thing that I liked as a photographer. And that's what kind of grabbed my attention. And that's what grabbed maybe an image from a regular image was, I mean, I could do sunsets and I would do things and they would be beautiful. And then sometimes just you had something that was off the, a moment that you got, it just spoke a lot more to you and stayed a lot longer. And I think for me, that's what I tried to implement on the set. It was about documenting this film. I knew what the film was about. But I also started enjoying a lot of working stills. I realized that the making of a feature film I found like super interesting because there was a collaboration, there was hard work, there were people doing things that under what you see or behind a camera that I felt were a lot, not more important, but as important to get that visual onto screen. And I loved watching that collaboration. And sometimes there's a certain sense of magic that came between, seeing, a cameraman or somebody behind the cameraman trying to do something so that he gets his shot, so that the actor is able to perform with ease. And so there's lots going on a set that I think I wanted to get and document. And I think for me it was also getting that moment. So even if it was Shah Rukh on the sets and there was that time on Chalak Chalak, there was a song sequence and then in the middle of that song he goes and he goes to the tunnel and he starts getting his coffee with him. That's the first time he spits out blood and he sort of sits down and he gets that. And I was going nuts because I had gear, but it wasn't like the greatest gear. It wasn't the greatest lenses. They weren't prime lenses. They weren't fast. So I was really I won't say struggling, but I really worked hard to get that shot because if you miss it, you miss it. It wasn't digital at that time. I couldn't shoot off, that many more images on the fly. So it was about getting it at that point. So I think I started pushing a little bit, and I realized that पीछे भी बैठ के मतलब कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. You have to sort of find your feet. You have to move in gently. You have to befriend the cinematographer, which happens when you start having a relationship like that on set. You start making friends, you start getting there comfortable, you want to be near the camera. And then people notice you. There is that little, you feel like super awkward. And like I remember there was so that shot of Shahrukh, when he's there, I had a long lens, and I had a long lens, and I got that moment, but it was hard because he was far, he was through a tunnel, there was fog, and all of those things. So you want that moment, and you don't want to miss it, and there's no way I'd have the guts to go and say, boss, just abhi, like if you can do the whole thing again and cough it out, and
Dobara kar lo.
So even for Ash, there was a scene where she had to run through a corridor and she was banging down Shanti and everything, and I was just like, I want one. Like, how do I ask her that I want one? Because it was through the corridor that she was walking. But and then she said, just ask, and it's okay, so let me do this again. So you start building a little courage to get what you want eventually, and you realize that you're on your own. Nobody's going to do it for you. And I don't think, I remember Vic was the associate there, but I realized later that there is this way that you can ask the first AD and you get in touch with them and you say, I need these skills, I would like to get these skills, can we do this? So I think only I realized after that, but I think for Devdas it was more about getting the moment for me to document, which was many of them through the film and the making in terms of the film.
But Ishika, tell me something. When somebody enters a film set for the first time, a lot of the people who might want to take still photography as a profession would be watching the session. One of the things that you have to transition is from being someone who sees actors, on screen, to someone who's going to be documenting the actors, right? That becomes a very important part of the navigation of the set. Like you said, that you slowly started to get to learn the methods. You started talking to the first AD, your allies on set was the cinematographer, the sound guy. You started asking for stuff. You started building up courage. Now, how do you also kind of balance, work with a certain kind of starstruckedness? Where you kind of forget that these are people who are big actors. They become subjects for you. Like, what is the process of kind of bridging that gap?
I think one is well, mostly if you're sort of hired to a job, respected for what it is. That's what you're hired. You're not hired to come and be somebody's pal or be the best of friends with somebody or anything. You're probably hired because of your work and because of what you can do. So for me, that was a sort of in terms of staying on that ground, staying on that. And I think maybe somewhere people see that and realize that you're not just faffing around. You're not there to, make friends with the crew, or I'm not saying it in a bad way. You, of course, you make friends with the crew, but you're not there to just, while away your time and sit around and, gossip or be somebody's friend. And I think somewhere that there's some people who do get starstruck, and there's some people who do get affected, and sometimes you have difficult directors or you have difficult actors. So I used to be also extremely wary of moves in front. Like I know, like Shahrukh was great in the sense that times that something happened, and I remember I'd be near the camera, and suddenly I realized I was in his eye line, and I wouldn't breathe because I was just like, I'm just gonna put the camera here and stay here and not budge. I'm behind a tree and I'm not visible or something. And I'm like, I just don't want to look and be that person who's, in the eye line. And I think somewhere then eventually I started asking. I said, am I in the eye line? Is it a problem if I'm here? And he's so seasoned that he'd be like, you're fine. He could just look through me, look into the lens and be okay with it. But I know that actors would be like, I'm a little like, just, move on the side. And I get that. And I understand why that's there. It is. You are another person to the camera. The cinematographer is behind this huge sort of lens and camera, but you're visible. And I get that. And I had that difficulty with Matt on Best of Worst. He just get Like she was just get to be in that clip of a film. Like every time she'd hear correct, she'd be like, "Krishna, just like this way." Sorry, I was hiding behind a pillar. I had a black puppet for me. I did everything. Like I was this really like annoying thing that would hide in places, and she'd hear it because at that time, like I was mentioning, I used to use like a muzzle. There are these sound boxes that cover your camera and everything. But I at that time I used to use a muzzle because I wanted more maneuverability in my camera and my lens. But in terms of that, you just have to work to the best that you can, and then you have to sort of take the help of your first AD, ask them what they can do for you, how can they help you get this till you want, they do the talking. At sometimes on international films, you have a publicist on board. If you have trouble, you address it to them. You slowly, get comfortable with it. But there's I do know of some photographers who had real trouble in terms of they've just had the roughest time and they're nearly in tears because sometimes you can be spoken badly to or rudely to. And I would just keep saying, it's not you. Like, don't take it personally. It's not you. I said, but if it's really hard, then by all means do what you need to do to make yourself comfortable. You don't have to go through anything. But if you can, block it off because it's not you. It's something that you have to do. Block it off. Go ahead, do the job, take the help that you can, and you do the best that you can at that time. So I think it's that starstruck thing does happen sometimes. Like, I mean, even for Extraction, we had Chris Hemsworth, who was there, but he was so easy. He was so easy because he didn't come with this, entourage and this personality or stuff. He was just very like laid back, in terms of coming through. He just came. He walked up to me, shook my hand, and said, "I'm Chris," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm Ishika." Like, oh, nice to meet you. So there's some people who break that ice and they come across, really easy for that. But of course, it is daunting, and you just have to sort of find that balance between getting what you need for your shot, and I would definitely say take the help of anybody on set for getting the stills that you need. If you can't, then that's a production call, and then the producer gets involved in all those things.
Ishika, the next thing I wanted to ask you was that you did speak about, when you were speaking about the Devdas experience, you did speak about, how there were a couple of things that you realized when you were on set that you didn't have the right kind of lenses, you might have required other things, also because of the fact that you're working for the first time and you begin to realize that, maybe if I had this would be better. And you spoke about the muzzle, so that the sound of clicking is sort of obscured for anyone who is on set and you don't disturb anyone. What are the equipment changes that you went through after the Devdas experience? Because you went on to Veer-Zaara after that. Of course, you don't work with anyone less than Shah Rukh. I'm just kidding. I'm just looking at the filmography and I'm like, okay, Devdas, Veer-Zaara, Slumdog Millionaire. So, also the stakes become much more when you're working with really seasoned people who are very famous. It can be very intimidating. But the learnings from Devdas, what were those learnings that you kind of, incorporated in the equipment you carried and in your manner when you were on set for Veer-Zaara?
Yeah, so actually for both of them, I was still shooting. Yeah, I was shooting film. I was still shooting film. For Devdas, I had a very low budget of, maybe 1 roll a day, which meant 36 frames if I got lucky. And I then I would buy like a black and white film for my working stills on another camera body so that I wouldn't have to share too much. But you were extremely disciplined with the kind of photography you did on set. You focused on what was important, and there were some things that you felt weren't important, and you maybe took one still of it, and then you let go. You didn't go completely crazy kind of documenting it. And I think on Devdas, there was a certain quota of your film. This is what you get. I worked with a camera that was essentially manual. I had a basic lens body you know, the wide to zoom and the zoom to tele sort of between 28 to 300. But none of them were really fast lenses, which meant, you know, the things in the dark were really hard. I had to make sure that my shutter speed was faster because I needed to get people into focus, especially night sequences. So I realized at some point that I need to up my game in terms of whether it's faster film, it's better lenses, it's maybe like a more automated sort of body. At least for this kind of work that I was doing. I used to also, strangely enough, there was like you had a spot sort of meter which you would take your readings with, and I think when I was on the manual thing, I would try and read it so that I would get like a faster shutter speed to capture it. And slowly, I think once Devdas to Veer-Zaara, I moved, and I still shot film, and I probably had a little more access to more roles for the day, and I got a little more access to maybe anything else that I needed in terms of if there was a certain sequence that required me to get another lens, I had that access for in terms of there. But if I'm not wrong, between the two of them, I had pretty much the same gear. But I just had a lot more access to it. But I had to. I realized that also from Devdas. I went and I did a lot more working stills than the imagery of the feature film. Just out of my own thing, I didn't realize it. But when I see it now, I see that I have a lot more black and white stills than I had the color negatives or the transparencies. On Veer-Zaara, I had to consciously do the opposite of making sure I got the film stills. So I made sure that I got a lot more of what the film is about. The essence is what Yashji wanted from the film, what he was so passionate about the crew and everything like that. So there was a lot more documentation. That's what I did in terms of from Devdas to Veer-Zaara in terms of the equipment wise. I don't think I changed anything at the same year. It did change after that. I did move to digital, which meant I needed to buy another body, and you don't have the money. You don't have the access and the money to just so I remember that we used to go shoot in the day, and sometimes Vikram and we would share a roll of film, like a Belvia, which was like 540 rupees, and we'd buy it and we'd go and share it on a day of shoot because we didn't have that much to, go shoot the whole day on Belvia or anything like that. But I think slowly you started upgrading and realizing you needed to move with the times. Like you're saying, you get a sense of this is what it is. You start looking a little more. I don't think we use Google to check any other person's work as such, but you knew of other photographers, you heard of them, you saw some of their work around, whether it's in the paper or then publicity. So you knew what was going on, what other people were doing as well. I think you tried to move towards that, but you did it. I think you did it with what you could. And once digital happened, again, I took a camera that was basic for me that I could afford. But when it comes to publicity, then there's a big talk about, oh, this doesn't work. This is too small. Iska megapixel bahut kam hai. And all of those things. And so those are battles that you fight along the way, and then you do what you can. And if you can't, then it's gone. It's gone. That time is gone. But if you have people who really sort of believe in you, they're willing to let you take that. And I think in Veer-Zaara, they gave me the entire publicity shoot for the film after that, which meant that I didn't own a studio, I didn't own lights, I didn't own, like the big medium format cameras and everything. And they gave that to me. They gave me that opportunity and said that this is your baby. You've done the entire film. You deserve to take this home. And we did that. It was my first publicity shoot where I got to hire a studio. We did it. It was a massive setup. I don't think I slept for a few nights before. And they let me do it. Yeah, we got everything done. They had that feeling. They had that confidence in me that I could do it and pull it off. And so that was like my first sort of change to publicity stills and being able to do that as well. So you keep moving as well. And now, of course, there's so much more that you're aware of in terms of technology. There's cameras changing. I haven't got a camera in years. because I'm petrified of buying a camera and then knowing that another one is on the market, and I'm like, no, you know,
It's like the iPhone. It's like the Apple products. You buy them and then suddenly you realize that you'll always be one gen behind unless until you're a millionaire. So Ishika, before I go to the question of analog and digital, which fascinates me, I wanted to ask a very small and basic question that the photographers, the still photographers on set are expected to get all the equipment on their own, right? It has to be their equipment, or do you also have the possibility, if you reach set, you have the basic equipment to ask production for things that you feel that you might need, which you don't want to purchase?
yeah. So I think now it's there's a lot more friendly banter in terms of the possibilities of what you need beforehand. Then you can get into a conversation saying, "This is, oh, this is this kind of film, so I will need this. So therefore, my budget is this." Initially, I think it was you had the gear, you came with what you had, and sometimes you may have lost out on a job because you didn't have what they thought was appropriate, or what they thought was needed for that job. So, but I remember for these, I had certain things, but the cost of film was theirs, totally. That's not my cost, that's production's cost. So that's their buying. But of course, if I needed something, I could have asked for it. On, I think it was Tararampam. Again, my camera again got outdated. I realized that, I needed nice, good glass, like nice, nice pencils. And after doing it, I realized that this was big thing missing in my images. I could sense the clarity, and I brought it forward, and I said, and I remember I told this buyer ref, and I told them, you all need to invest in a camera. Very important for studios to have their own camera. So I think you should buy this, and I'll use it now for this, and then you keep it. But
Smart.
but it worked for them because they needed it. They were in-house, they were a studio, they had enough people coming, enough projects coming in. So we did invest in one camera, like a basic 2 lenses and camera body, and bought it and used it. And then after the shoot, you give it back to them. And then of course there were other photographers who were using it. So there's no loss on that. It's a good move, and then they're getting the images to the quality that they would like. So you come to that sort of conjunction, and now I think it's a lot more inbuilt in your sort of budget of if you're going to do this feature film, I would need this lenses. This is what I need to rent. This is what I'm assuming would be my cost. So along with my fees, this is my budget cost that's coming into place as for this time period. On set, sometimes you do. We also sometimes do headshots on set. Like I think of Best Exotic, we did a couple of them where we took them with like a white skimmer, daylight, soft light, and had headshots of the actors there because there was no time to do a publicity still shoot for them later on. They're flying back to England, they're coming back. So you make do what you can. And doing that even on this other film called West is West, in a small room or other side of the door. You have one side dedicated, with your stands and your skimmer, and then when the actors are free, you get them quickly in, and then you do a couple of headshots. So that's all doable now. There's I think enough people know that it's production friendly to maybe do this simultaneously, and it's also extremely production friendly to use images from the film, from the film itself instead of recreating the entire thing later. So it works both ways, I think.
Ishika, you spoke about analog and digital, right? And working with analog is a completely different thing. And I know a lot of people might not be working with analog right now because there's such amazing digital technology which is available. But analog came with a certain discipline. Like you said, there were designated roles that you were given. You could take X number of shots, and you can't go trigger happy with an analog camera because of budgets, because of the amount of resources available to you. What is it that you miss about analog, if you miss anything at all, as opposed to digital? And do you still shoot analog at times?
I still have a roll that's in my film camera, which it hasn't gone beyond probably the 10th frame as yet because of
Yes.
I'd love to shoot. I'd love to shoot analog still. I don't have the discipline to do it right now, though I really, really want to. I think the for me the main thing between the analog and the digital is just pure discipline of shooting. What we did initially with, I think on set you're a lot more focused about what your needs are. You're more disciplined about this is the order of the day. I have 36 frames. Maybe I have a roll. I have two. I have three. Whatever your quota is, and I'm not going to go beyond that. And that sort of gives you complete control and also so it gets you a little more immersive, I think, into what you're doing. You're just not free floating and doing anything and everything under the sun. There's a very, very focused, streamlined way of approaching the entire project. And that's what I miss. That's what I miss because since digital and automation and faster bursts of things and projects that are also more different and action oriented and technology is changing everywhere. So you have to sort of keep up with it, and because of that, you want to make sure you get that image. You want to document that image, and you'll do anything you can. So there's that much more that you're shooting with digital, and I go nuts after that because who's going to come back and sort through 400 images, 800 images, and on a mad day, 1,000 images, and reject, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. It's a lot of work. It's hard, and so I miss that about film. I miss having that little quiet discipline of being able to sort of be more disciplined, focused. I feel like I'm more quiet sometimes, in a sense.
Do you try and bring the same discipline of analog to the way you shoot digital? Is it even possible to do that?
Possible is not. I don't think so. But I try. So I always go in on the day and I'm like, today is going to be that day. I will not shoot more than this. And and I've come back some days being in control. Or what I've tried to do is when I've been on set, I'll be like, like this, just like, oh wow, light, oh shoelace, oh this, oh that, and then you're like, calm down, because who's going to see the shoelace? Only you. Nobody else is going to see that. So I've started doing that to myself now. I've started, just realizing the amount of work it takes to streamline all these images and sort them out and realize, boss, itna time bhi nahi hai, I need to make sure that we do something about that. So that streamlining has started happening, but it's just not, I can't do the 36. I never come home on a digital shoot unless I've fallen asleep on set or it's been a really bad day. Like sometimes you have bad days. You have bad days on set and you don't get more than maybe 50 or 100 images or something, And so there are those days, but otherwise it's very, very hard for me to not shoot that much. But I have started coming out, then I start deleting them on set because I'm like, okay, let's do this, let's be smart about it. No. What are we looking for? Okay, we're looking for this. What is the scene? So I'll start breaking it down on set while I can, whether it's in the car or doing the backups or whatever. Oh dear, that's it.
Ishika, we have a lot of pictures of you in very weird places on the set. You're under a table in one picture and Yash is just not showing that picture for some strange reason. But I really want that picture to be seen. And you're also crouching in one corner. There is that picture that I've been trying to bring up for a very long time. I don't know how these ladies felt with seeing you under there. But the other thing, we touched upon that at the start of the session, that a picture is the image of out of the film is the first image that anybody processes, right? That's the first one that goes out. That is the one that is going to set some kind of a expectation, some kind of a mood, evoke some kind of a feeling in you about the film, right? Now I know that things began to change for people who were doing still photography on the set. And then you started to find a proper place in the production pipeline where it became extremely important for the still photographer to get a sense of the script, to get a sense of the tonality. When did you see that change happen? Did you read the script of Devdas? Were you given that? Were you given the script of Veer-Zaara? Like, when did you start to see that change come in where suddenly it was important for the still photographer to be in on the action?
So, yeah, no, Devdas, I wasn't. Veer-Zaara was just told, "Bade, abhi main film bana raha hu." But Veer-Zaara, Forest, I was given a script because we had to sort of figure out which. It was I think it was a 2-month schedule or 2-month schedule in corporate, and they wanted, obviously, you want to make sure you're smart and you cut costs where you can. So you realize, okay, these days are not great for shooting stills. It's not needed, it's not viable, and these days are. So I was given script to read, to get a sense of when I would be needed, when I would come back home, and when I would make a trip to go again back to set and come back again. So I did make 2 trips for that. So Forest was the first one, and then Slumdog was the other one, where I think when I met Danny and he gave me a script and he says, read it, and I was like, it's like for me, like I take this home, like I get to read a script. And he said, why is everybody saying that? And I said, because we don't really get scripts to read, you know? Like that, I mean, we're photographers, we don't get scripts, we just like, or shoot for it, you know? But he's like, no, like, you know, see, you know, read it, let me know what you think. So that was the first time I had somebody who was, you know, open to sharing work. I think also people are very possessive about their work over here in terms of stories, and you know, somebody will have an impression about it before, or somebody will say something about it, and I think that's why maybe people don't give it out, possibly, or they don't think you're important enough to give it out. Like, what do you need it for? You just have to come on set and do it. And I think post Slumdog is where I started and I also started asking for it in a sense, because I felt it was important for me to also be passionate about what project I was taking. I didn't want to do something, so I didn't want to do something just because काम मिल रहा है तो करे. I needed to be excited about it. I needed to be engaged about it. It's very hard to be on set and be a happy photographer documenting if you're not interested in the project. What are you gonna document? What are you gonna get out of, you know, a picture? I mean, you have to feel something for whether it's a story, whether it's an emotion, or whether it's a moment, or whether it's a scene or something. You know, something has to sort of grab you to do something. And I think for me, that's what it started becoming. And then slowly I started reading. Then I started realizing that if I read certain scripts, then I start breaking it down in my head of what I think are important scenes to document. When is a good day for me to come? What maybe I should change some of my lenses for that day. Maybe I could hire a different glass for that day, or get a tighter lens, or a big or whatever the requirement was. So I think you started. I started using it as that sort of a tool to help me be able to do the best that I could on that day. You know, in terms of even scheduling course and also sort of everything. Like sometimes you want to do a project which you can't do all days, and then you sort of put forward that, oh, look, why don't I come in? I'll do 10 days. I'll get your images. You know, I'll make sure you have the best images for those 10 days that I'm there. So you're also starting to sort of sell yourself and your work and what you can do for a project based on that.
You know, I find it absurd that anyone on the set, I'm talking about somebody who's responsible for the first image to come out, working blind. If you don't have the script, how do you know? How are you even certain that what you're capturing it somehow brings out the essence of what is happening in that film? So I'm really glad that began to change. I also feel that generous collaborators and directors really help, because I remember, and if we can bring that up, Danny Boyle sent you a beautiful message, because he was really happy with the work that you did, and he actually wrote this to you And he even said, I think from the Cannes Film Festival or from a film festival, he wrote to you and he said, Ishika, your stills have helped us sell the film.
That was very cool. I think that was the first time I thought, I realized that films could do that, or stills could do that. I didn't know that was possible. I knew during Devdas they went to Cannes. They made a beautiful brochure for Cannes, and everybody kept talking about that brochure that they did for Devdas. But this was something that I didn't know existed, or that stills could be used to this level. And I used to sort of shoot the images, and I used to color correct them also, and I used to send them up and start uploading them, just also so that they get a feel of what I'm doing on set. And am I going wrong? Am I looking at this wrong? Am I looking at this film wrong? Is there a certain way that I'm approaching it that it shouldn't be approached as? I would always do that also simultaneously sometimes, but they made a brochure and he said that you helped sell the film, and that was just not needed, but it felt really cool, It was like, oh, okay, like la la la. But it was lovely. So that's I think the first time that I realized that images can do that. Images can get eyeballs. Images can tell a story. Images can give an emotion. That it's not, and it's not moving. It's not moving. It's a still. So I think that was the first time I realized that a first look can bring that sort of excitement about, or that awareness about a feature film.
I think it's very needed. I think you're sweet that you say that, it's not needed, but I think any opportunity that you get to appreciate a collaborator or somebody who's working with you and has just started their career, if you can be kind and genuine in your appreciation, I think it changes lives. You don't know what. So, guys, continue to do that if you get the opportunity to do it. Ishika, another thing is that, you've worked a lot with Vikramaditya Motwane, who is a filmmaker, also happens to be your husband. And you've also worked on sets where Vikram's not there. You worked on his films, but you've also worked with other people. Just because of the kind of body of work that you have, after you started to get experience, what are the first few things that you do on set, especially when you do not know that team at that point of time, to kind of gather confidence and a comfort level with them so that you can do your job?
Yeah, it's definitely not the same. I mean, it's when I'm working on a film with him, it's like home ground. I do have a lot more leeway in the sense that even the first AD, I keep asking him politely, like, can I? He's like, Amma, you're going to in any case, like, why are you even asking me? Why? But when you're on another feature film and you're finding your footing, I think staying sort of very, very true to the reason you're there, and staying very honest, grounded, why you're there really helps, in the sense of you're there to do, like I mentioned before, you're there to do a job, you're there to do something, and you have to have that in mind. You have to keep that as your key thing. Like, okay, I want to go somewhere. If I get my footing there, how do I warm up to these people? Who are they? Do they know others? Some of them are. That mostly happens sometimes even on international projects. They have a different way of working. Are you in coaching? Are you not in coaching? Are you one of them? Are you not? There's that whole sort of. It's not a dilemma, but it's a. I'm not sure, like, what's the word, but it's a feeling that you have to gauge. You have to gauge the tension. You have to gauge the people. You have to. So I would always sort of take it slow. I'd never impose myself on the day, on the first day or the second day. Yes, if I could get something and I thought it was important on that first day, I would sort of needle and say, I really think this still is important. May I have this still? And I go through proper channels to get it. So there are ways to do it, and there are ways to sort of, it's like a sort of transition into the team. You smoothen your way. You make sure you sort of get your standing for the job that you're doing without pushing the wrong buttons, on the first day especially, things are going to be high. Your director is not going to make this day. So there's lots of those things going on. You don't want to sit and be, I want, so you have to at some point. So I think you have to, it's about sort of guessing the temperament of everyone around you and watching yours as well, being a little more slow into sort of getting your feet wet. Is the way I would do it. I know there are other people who may do the opposite. They may go slam dunk and approach it differently. But if I felt like it was a hard shoot, it was a 50 degrees heat, that we're working in, there's action sequences. You have to figure out what the school is about, who's the boss, who is taking charge, where's your comfort zone, who can you liaison with, is the DOP friendly enough to be close enough to him. Can you get into that zone? How's the first AC? First ACs are always grumbling, So it's hard. It's hard for everybody. Everybody is trying to make the day, and you're this one person. I always find like I'm like these guys sort of make fun of me, saying that you're the head of your own department, so to speak. So it's you who's the solo person making the day and making what works for you. So I think it's about feeling around is what I would do. Normally I would warm up in a cage who are my people.
Ishika, you being the solo person in the team, I know you've got assistants, but you chose not to have an assistant. You have assistant for lights and other technical stuff, but you chose not to have an assistant to lug your equipment, because you also realize that if you have an assistant who's kind of always behind you lugging the equipment, the title of this session would disappear, because you would not be invisible anymore. You would not be the fly on the wall. You would be a fly with a whole jhund behind you. So that's a tough call that you took, not to have somebody lugging your stuff as you went around the set. And is that a wise call to take?
Physically, after all the physiotherapy and yoga sessions, no. But no, for me, it really works. And I've had a lot of people asking me, "Can I assist you? Can I assist you?" And I feel really bad because I don't know how to say that I kind of work on my own, and I lug my 12-15 kilos on me every day. There's a certain way that I work which I like, so that I can move around freely. I can remove a lens that I want with me. I don't want to go somewhere, and my thing is I don't want to miss the shot. I don't want to miss it. So I'm always on my feet. I have everything on me. I have my lenses. I have my extra battery packs. I have my cards. I have everything. So it's just so that I just don't have to turn away. I don't have to turn away. I don't have to go away unless a break or something. But even in the break time, it's sometimes you find things that are interesting, So it was a conscious, but it was also actually early on there was no conscious decision. It was the way you were that one person. You had that one camera, and then slowly I realized that I could get help. I could get somebody to lug, my stuff for me or keep it on the side, and then I can go and get it. But it just, like you said, it doesn't work for me personally. I'm not able to sort of mingle, and I don't want that. I don't want to be responsible for somebody else. Plus, I've always got that thing of, what is that other person doing? Is that person staring? Like you say, is that person staring at one of the actors and being completely starstruck, and then I'm gonna do something about it, or is he or she taking a photo that she shouldn't be doing on set? Are they following protocols about being out of the way? Are they in the way? All of those things is like an added responsibility that I don't want on set. At that point of time, I'm like, this is what I'm here to do. This is my focus, and that's I can't handle it. Like looking backwards also. Eyes at the back. Even though I tell people I have eyes at the back.
Ishika, I have just last 2-3 questions before we open the house out for questions from the people who are participating and are on this call right now. I also wanted to find out, there are a lot of people who start as still photographers. First of all, what is the natural progression for a still photographer? Like, where do you go from there? And the second thing is that, cinematography or advertising, usually people who are still photographers move to that, but you chose to stay. What made you stay?
The crazy mad energy and of being on set. I don't know. Even I ask my questions, that same question sometimes. And earlier on, it's not like you got paid, really well. I mean, you did something sometimes for free. You did something for, $2,000 a day, which I felt was like damn good. Like I thought I was super rich at the end. But you're not doing it for that at the end. Um, for me, it was just that energy of watching something coming together. I wanted to be a part of that. I know a lot of photographers move, they go into cinematography, sometimes some of them get into direction, some of them move into another aspect as well. But there's something about being a part of a team, being part of like so many great creative people, uh, projects, and being a part of that coming together and having something to do with it, and that really pushes me every day when I'm on set. Even though sometimes on horrible situations it's like I remember it's like just you're in heat, sunstroke, 50 degrees, you're dripping, and you're like, I'm not, why am I here? Why have I agreed to do this? And yeah, and at the end of the day, you'll get that one shot. It's that one shot that you get maybe at the end of the day or after a week that you realize that this is why. This is what makes me happy. And then, it's watching that film come on screen. Even though when you're watching that film, you've not it's not yours in the sense that you've not done the costumes or the hair or the makeup or you haven't been part of the lighting department or any of those things, but you are as much a part of that project than you know. And I think it's that energy and it's that creative process of this, watching this film come together from paper to screen is beautiful. It's like, and you meet so many fun people and amazing people along the way. Like so many of them are still some of my closest friends from like the first film onwards, still Veer-Zaara. I mean, each sort of film you take away so much money, you take away so much learning. Because each film teaches you another way to approach the other film, or another film taught you this is, oh, you're being complacent. I'm going to push you. And that's what suddenly pushes when suddenly you start seeing things a different way and you realize, oh, I could also shoot this way, which you take to another feature film anyway. It's all of that.
But Ishika, the thing is that there were a lot of names when you entered the industry, and also people who were contemporaries that kind of fell off the radar. Like it's not as if post still photography they got thriving careers. How did you've been working for almost 2 decades now. How do you stay relevant? How do you update yourself? How do you update your technique? How do you keep up with technology, with needs, with projects, with circulation? How do you do that?
So to be honest, I don't think I do as much as I should. And mine comes, and especially, post Akira being there, it's not something that I pick up every day or every. It's probably like I'll do a film a year or something like that. But I think it's that love and it's that passion for doing what you do. If it's there, comes to you, you would be able to do anything for the next 100 years. If you have that love and that passion of getting that one still, it makes me happy. And for me to get that one still, or for me to have somebody appreciate it and say that you helped sell my film, or images helped sell my film, or to have somebody say that I hate still photographers on set, but you're really good, and hats off to you for getting it done and not letting you be in my line, or somebody who appreciates the image you've taken, even after they've grumbled through the entire process of filmmaking, and said that you're fine, you're perfect, or something like that. That sort of validates the effort and the time that you've given to or to this project. And I think and each one to its own. I mean, I know there are people who have moved to advertising. I know people who've moved to other projects and way bigger things in a sense. But for me, there's just that love. Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like I'm sucked in and I'm hooked and it's very hard. So even sometimes I think like, oh, maybe I'll do something else and I'll get a little more creative and do something else, which is not still. The moment I hear a project, I'm like, project is it? Is it like, can I be a part of it? Like, you need stills. It's that. It's about that. It's a challenge. It's that delivery and being able to every time and every year as you grow older, being able to stay relevant, push yourself, and then see, do you have it? You know, do you have it? Do you still have it? So sometimes there may be a film where I feel like, okay, I did okay. I did okay, but I didn't get magic out of it. But I did okay. You know, and was it my doing? I think I gave it 100%, but it's okay. So there will be those, but they're prestigious projects. You know, it's like another feather in the cap. So that's what I think sort of eggs me on and keeps me going. And the fact that people come back and say that, you know, we're having this or we're doing this, and I think it would be great for this. Or I think you should do this, don't do this. When Sacred Games season, what was it? I think when Sacred Games season 2 was starting or something, the first schedule was clashing with Extraction. And one of the girls came and she said, I think you should do Extraction and don't do, you know, Sacred Games season 2 for this section or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, and so that feels good. That's a big sort of validation that they're willing to have you, a photographer in this country, local, than get somebody else from, you know, Australia or UK or London or something like that. And that's what I think that's what sort of pushes you.
Ishika, last question before we get all the wonderful people who are on this call with us to switch on their camera. You said that what makes you stay and what has made you stick around is that you feel part of the projects that you do. You feel part of the ecosystem. You feel like that's your project. But unfortunately, there's a culture of very poorly crediting the still photographer in films in India. In fact, 5 years ago, when I started working at MAMI, one of the things that I started to notice, because we were dealing with so many people, so much of talent from the West, that every time a picture would come to us, there would be the still photographer's name and they would insist that credit be given. There were so many projects where I didn't even know that you had done those projects or those were pictures that you've taken, because people are really lax about giving credit, and also not having the still photographer credited in some of the main. You're an HOD. So my point is that how does that affect one's sense of belonging? What do you feel about this?
So like I don't know. I mean, but Devdas, of course, like at the end credits, my name comes, and also of course like the film releases, everybody has to go. Everybody, the full family has to go. Why? Because you have to see the name at the end. You forget about the film and what happens. Everybody's there for your name. And something happened. I think there were so many shows going back to back, and then of course it was a long film, so they started cutting the end credits out. And of course there was a full lagula that happened, because everybody's like, "Ari, Tata," and they're like, "Me, go next show," and I'm like, "You think people, that's disrespectful and all that?" He's like, "Madam, did you work on the film?" I'm like, "That's not the point, you can't keep." So that's what happens, it's like, oh, okay, just get a bunch of names, let's move on. And I think that's really sad and disrespectful. I feel for anybody, you've worked hard, you've worked on a film. Yes, the other HODs are more senior, they may be more senior, they may be more prominent, they may be more important, but everybody is also working on the film. Everybody is putting their 100% on that feature film. And credit, you've got to give where it's deserved and where it's due. And I remember there was for $1 Million Arm, I watched the film, and again we went to see the film, and again in credits you wait to see your name, and it wasn't there, and there was a bit of a and I remember getting in touch and saying, that's not done. That's very, very untrue. But of course, at that point, you're sort of shying out from responsibility, and you pass the book around, and maybe there's been a genuine mistake because they've come here, they've done a schedule, they've gone somewhere else, and everything. But it's not done. It's not done, and even like was, I think, print for stills on like digital media, or you have your press or your papers or anything. Initially, it used to be very hard to ask for credit, and not because nahi dena hai. They were like, why bother putting it? What did you? It's a picture, and I'm like, yeah, but you will write at the bottom other things, and you will write a headline. It takes that much more to just write photo by, So I still do it, and I still ask for credit, and I'm pretty. And the problem is, I feel shameless. Like you're saying that it's due, but you feel shameless about asking for credit, which is no. So I mean, hopefully that'll change soon. And there are people who kind of insist on it. Like I know Netflix does have print. They do use your name over there, but I'm also sort of being a little smarter and looking and making sure on contracts beforehand. Like make yourself safeguard yourself as much as you can beforehand, and then you can't blame anyone later or anything. Get your groundwork done as much as you can before.
So basically, start to negotiate. I mean, start having that put in your contract, so that and don't feel. I think the culture has also been made in such a way that you constructed this reality where if you ask for credit for your work, for some strange reason, asking for credit for your work is considered bad. I think that really needs to be reversed, because who else's work are you going to ask for credit for? कि picture तो आपने बनाई है, मेरा नाम क्यों नहीं डाल देते आप as a director? So I wanted to bring that up because I think there has been a sea change. Of course, more stuff needs to happen for people to realize how important the work of the still photographer on set is in the production pipeline.
Like because I'm not greedy, but I'm also kind of, I'm like, actually, why isn't it on a poster? I'm like, if there's actor, if there's director, if there's cameraman, if there's this, I'm like, why is it not there in the poster? Why can't we have, photo taken by in the poster? And I'm like, why don't we have for like, like best poster, whatever.
Well, the thing is that it's not greedy. I think you're asking, that poster is your image. It's the one place where the image is. So if you're asking for it, I don't think you can call yourself greedy. But Ishika, it was lovely, and I think I'm going to stop babbling, and I'm going to request everyone who's on this call with us to put on their cameras, guys. Now you'll start to see people coming in. They're like really interesting people on the call with us.
Oh, what fun!
These are all the lovely people who signed up to listen to you and have some really exciting questions. I am going to start taking the questions one by one. And can I request Pavan Khade to, can he be unmuted, please? Hi, Pavan. Go for it. Hi.
Hi. Am I audible?
Yes.
So my first question is to Ishika. Like I have seen you work on set, sometimes with two camera setup. So wanted to ask, I mean, is it like a prime setup and a zoom setup, and how do you make a decision in that fraction of a second? I have to go like right or left. So, like how does that whole thing stand about?
Did you get Pavan's question? Pavan, there is, if you can put off your audio for a second, what I can do is Pavan's also put his question on the chat box. He said that often I've seen you on sets with two camera setups. It is one prime and one zoom setup. So what's the equation? Also, how do you make a decision when you see the moment? It's a fraction of a second, right? How do you kind of decide in the spur of the moment as to what you want to do?
So, so Pavan, essentially, sometimes it's not really always a wide or a zoom. Sometimes I'm not that smart and I don't safeguard myself like that. But what I do is I hang around to see what the next setup is. Before we get into filming, I see what the next setup is. I see the rehearsals if I'm allowed and if I can. If I can't, I'll hang from the tarafa, or I'll go somewhere else where I think I can see something or hear something, or I'll ask, once the rehearsals are up, I'll go and I'll ask somebody, I'm like, what happened? Who was where? What is the equation? What was the camera movement? And understand what the scene was, and then preempt what I think I might need for the take. So I kind of do that little homework before. So which is why I was laughing and saying that I have all these aches and pains, because I'm not really sitting on set. I don't really go away. Sometimes I'm kind of always present to see and feel and hear what might be happening, so that I don't miss out on anything, like you're saying, because everything happens in a second. And the thing is that I'll shoot rehearsals also. I'll also shoot rehearsals, and sometimes the actors aren't ready. Like, somebody will have a clip in their hair, or they'll have, they'll have something else that won't be the costume. But I'll shoot it so I get a sense of what the action is, what's the movement, what's the emotion, and then I know where or what I can be prepared for lens-wise. And sometimes in a jiffy, sometimes I have one body and I have the lenses in my system. So I would literally, after one take, before we go in for the second one, I would literally switch my lens around and quickly get in and put in another lens before the take is started, So I'm a little desperate like that, but you have to be a little quick, and you have to gauge, and you have to sort of preempt, and it comes with a lot of practice and rehearsals, and you get a sense of what you might need to do.
Also, I just want to supplement Pavan's question. So the prep really helps, and does getting to know the script, having conversations with the DOP, your allies on set, like you were saying in the session, that the cinematographer, the sound person, the first AD. So do they help you kind of, like, if you have a rapport with them, if you know what the script is about, does that help in kind of also having an innate sense of which moments to catch?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because you kind of do your homework in any case, so you know what's there. And then I used to be like the annoying one, like be like, when is that shot? Like, when are we doing that scene? When are we doing that scene? When are we doing that scene? Because I felt like, I have to be prepared for it. Like, I have to, I still have to jog on the spot or something to be prepared. But you got to sort of get into it. You don't want to miss it. Like, there was this one action sequence on Extraction where they prepped for half the day to get that one sequence of this cop car coming in, chasing, and then the car's doing a roll. Now, they've been practicing for 5 months already. So their sense of prep work is phenomenal. They've been practicing for 5 months. They've done the roads. They know the sequences. Now, you have a safety guy on set who's saying nobody is allowed means nobody's allowed. So I'm like, abhi, matlab shot to chahiye, abhi kya karu? So I have gone around on top of a bridge, which has got a railway track. And I have squatted there for 3 hours, hiding, I hope, but hiding, behind, and I think I'd taken a plant with me also. And I was far away from the action.
You took a plant with you, Ishika.
I just realized how absurd that sounded. But I had a plant with me, that's the one. As you can
Is this that shot? Is this the plant that you kept in front of you? I love this. This is amazing. Guys, I also want to tell you, of course, Ishika has climbed on top of tarafas and she's done all of this. Please take proper safety measures. Okay? Don't start hanging. Please, I'm very worried.
Yeah, no, I did. I did like one of the ADs did know I was up there, and of course we were talking in Hindi, and I said, "मैं इधर ही हूँ, मैं 2 घंटे से इधर ही बैठी हूँ." And every time there was a prep to it and everything, I would get up to stretch my back, and then I'd hear, "Who's there?" And I'm like, "Arey shit, वापस नीचे." Like, go hide down again. So it's you really prep for that, or you hide, or you don't hide. Sorry. What I mean is you safeguard yourself to get the shot that you need, and you make sure you know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, so you're prepared. So at that time, obviously for that one, I was long length, ready for it, made sure my battery was full, made sure the cards I had were intact, and all of those things. So you have to sort of gauge what is important and make sure you're ready for that.
Lovely. There's the very gorgeous, lovely Janicia, who is also on call with us right now, and she was part of your session, Ishika. And I would request for her to be unmuted, please, Janicia.
Hello. Sorry, I had to just step out from one meeting and I've just come in here to say hi. Big fan of both the ladies.
Are sweet. As we are sweet.
Yeah, of course.
All go for it. Ask those fantastic questions that you've put down on the chat.
Okay. Sorry, Kalpana's going to shout at me later. I actually have 2 questions. Okay.
Go for it.
The first one is, you have your own creative control over what you're doing. You're taking your own autonomous decisions while you're working with somebody else's story. Is there some kind of narrative or some kind of, you said you have a journalistic mind when you go into these situations. Are you forming some kind of narrative while you're documenting somebody else telling a story? That's my first question. And, I would love in the future to see some exhibition where, you've put up all the stills that, I know there's probably a rights thing and everything, but you put up the stills that didn't make it and you tell your story of the story being made, the Ishika story. That's the first thing. Second thing is, just curious, but you acted in a film recently, and was there a still photographer who you were judging? That's what I want to know.
Wow, fantastic idea for that exhibition. I second that. Please.
Yeah, please tell her. Yeah, push her. Seriously, I would love it.
Go for it. Please answer this question. Both questions, actually.
You're totally spot on. It's been on my mind for the last many years. Every time I kept thinking, I said, should I do an exhibition? I think when we were doing like 100 years or something, I said, I'll do one. And suddenly I said, maybe I don't have that many, like you suddenly feel like, maybe, I need to do more work before I get there. But I think I have a fun, interesting, different body of work in terms of the working skills. And like you're saying, in terms of the narrative, the photojournalistic thing. So there are a couple of things that happen. I mean, one is like we're saying, like one is film stills, which is purely different promotion. You have to look at it in a certain way. And sometimes to make it interesting, you try and make it your own. You are going a different angle. You are not where the cinematographer is. So that's your inner challenge that you want to keep pushing, and you want to get something that's different. That is one sort of narrative that you're trying to do, and the other one is like the working stills. For me, that is complete joy and beauty to document and look at year after year after year, because you get to know the team, you get to know what's gone into the making of a film, you get to know what was somebody's state of mind at that time. All of those things, like suddenly you realize, like, that one was having a bad day, or you suddenly realize all these things sort of make sense maybe later. You sort of see things through a different eye later, and I think that's the narrative that I'm sort of looking at in terms of revisit. For me to revisit an image again and again means it's working. So that's something that I try and look towards when I'm kind of shooting for working stills. It's not just cutter mein haath hai and great shot. It's sometimes I'm mentally also, I've started doing a little bit of a series where I want to do silhouettes. Fun things have happened by chance. So suddenly, I've seen someone, I'm like, that silhouette, like, maybe I can get everybody in silhouettes. And slowly you didn't realize, but subconsciously through your films, you started getting actors in silhouettes, or you've got people in the mirrors. Mirrors are like great reflections of people and who they are. That's another one that is really interesting way to look at people and to see their focus and their concentration and their real self. So I think that's definitely something that I want to do in the future, and I will. And funnily enough, on our short film, I think we didn't have a photographer on set because I was only taking the phone half the time and doing like working stills. I was like, "Ooh, this is cool. Like, ooh, I'm in a car. Like, ooh, wow, there's a gym here. Let's do, you know." So I was having fun doing that, but I think we had screen grabs, if I'm not wrong, for our posters and stuff. But I did have a photographer for my wedding. He was very stressed. Like he kept saying, "Madam, ye theek hai? Madam, ye theek hai? Madam, madam, theek hai, madam, theek hai." You know, but he was so cute because I just told myself, "Put a light in front of you, you know, you had it and all that." So he was so scared. I said, "You go from the back, because, you know, you just stay in the background and don't come close." So he's been the only petrified one so far.
Genesia, you and I are going to hold Ishika to this exhibition idea. We're going to hound her. You are in for trouble, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, Genesia, for joining us, and I hope you come for more sessions. Can I request Shefali Deshpande to be unmuted, please?
Hi.
Hi, Shefali. Go for it.
Hi, Smriti. Hi, Ishika.
Hi.
Off topic, I think you're really pretty. Yeah, really pretty. And the question that I had, I wrote it down. So I was asking basically, you know how photography and filmmaking and even screenwriting, the main point kind of becomes how to convey maximum emotion, maximum story, maximum idea, all of those things in as little with as little noise as possible. So even in a film, when we talk about having a well written scene or a well written shot, or those are usually the scenes traditionally that work and convey that story and convey that meaning regardless of the background score and the music and the dialogues and all of those things. So I feel that in a film, what a frame does is, what a good frame or a good shot or a good scene does is to convey that meaning with as little dialogue, music, etc., etc., as little disturbance, as little noise. What I was asking is, as a photographer, you do exactly that. You take these still photographs to convey story, convey idea, convey meaning, all of those things. So how do you kind of decide which photo photo or what frame, as if what frame, what photo, which of these things will have, which will be able to convey the maximum meaning without noise? And how do you decide that okay, this frame is the one, this is the one that conveys the maximum story, this conveys the maximum meaning? And do you do that consciously? Do you put together those frames, or do you kind of just you naturally observe your surroundings and you let it happen? So I just wanted to know that as a photographer, how do you get to that point? And then I feel that the same thing can be applied to filmmaking also, that a good photographer who can convey so much meaning in one photo could do the same thing for every single shot or every single frame in a film. So that's my question. I hope I wasn't rambling or unclear or something. I don't know.
No, it's just like me. Even I'm the same. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Shefali, please, with the two of us here, I don't think you should be worried about rambling. I think Shefali's given a great idea here again. Of course, please, Ishika, answer that question. But filmmaker bhi ban jao.
Huh?
Still photography, acting, ye bhi kar lo. Okay, go for it, Ishika. Go for it.
She wants to ask something?
Yeah, Shefali's question, what she asked, if you can just answer that.
Yeah. No, I thought she was asking something.
Yeah, I want to ask one thing. I mean, I kind of just want to say something, that I feel that basically a film is a culmination of so many little photographs, right? All the frames are photographs, and you create the smallest, most important unit of that film, because I feel like a film is basically so many moving images, right? So how do you decide which image tells the maximum story?
That's the essence. Yeah, so I think it started with, like, if I go like for the first time, it kind of worked. And I think To be honest, like Devdas time, I didn't know really what I was doing. I didn't know what I was supposed to do or anything. And I remember just going in with the thing of documenting, and the working stills was something that I enjoyed doing, and I was observing and I was looking, and it was something that was new to me for the first time. But it comes from somebody who is seasoned or somebody who's got that eye or that experience or has that knowledge in it. Like I remember Sanjay saying, I remember he saw this. So the whole thing was, he says, "You come now 2 days and you do something and we'll see." And I went 2 days, and then I think I remember showing him some of the images, and then he said, "Tiong." So obviously something that I did resonated with him and worked for him. And I didn't know. I mean, I know good image is sharp, looks good, is pretty. You know, and actors and actresses do look pretty. What's a moment? I can now like I could gauge, and then I think that experience of him looking at a shot of Shah Rukh. It was a black and white shot of him standing against a pillar with a bottle. And I had taken that in the interim during the scene layout, during lighting change or something. Shah Rukh was just sort of standing there and being there. And I just felt that it looked really interesting and very quiet. And I somewhere maybe, like now I can say maybe I felt like it dropped what Devdas was. You know, he was alone in that sense. But I think Sanjay had that experience to say that, okay, this is a great image. Maybe this should be on the poster, you know, and recreate it. So I realized some things about images that you take sometimes bring about a certain emotion of what it can resonate. And sometimes it's by chance, and sometimes it takes one person to recognize that. So like I didn't know about that initially, but I know he said that. Then Veer-Zaara, it was a still of Shah Rukh and Preeti together hugging during a song sequence at the fort in Delhi, and I remember taking that image, and then we did everything. But obviously somewhere between Yashji, Adi, and the publicity Bayaz designer, they somehow figured that this resonated with the love story of the two people. You know, that they were separated, that they were in love before, and then they were separated and then rejoined. And that's when we recreated that image again. So I started realizing a little bit about images that you take on set representing a film or an essence or a moment. And I tried to do the same. And then I started consciously looking for that. And I started looking for that on a script basis. I started looking for that maybe with conversations with maybe a director, maybe sometimes even crew members on set. You know, you're not sure who can be there, who you're talking to. Sometimes you have people that you're talking to about what they love about the script, what they love about the film. For Lootera, it was, you know, Vikram is extremely passionate about using on set images, then recreating. We did actually we did a full publicity shoot post the film, and but it was very violent in its, you know, it was about when we catching Sonakshi's hair or something and pulling her because it's, you know, this passionate love story, and it was like that's not the film, you know, it's not what we wanted. So those little things also sometimes come from the director, and if they're open enough and passionate enough to have that conversation with you, like, so sometimes you can bring it up, and sometimes I've brought it up, whether it's to the producer or whether it's to the director in conversation, that this is what I'm thinking. Like Lootera also, we were doing the scene of the Paki falling sick in the car, and it was on the road, and it was a winding road, but it was this isolation of this of these two people, you know, where they're caught in a moment, and they are caught in that moment from the time, you know, he's been kind of avoiding, she's sort of curious and flirty, and because of the circumstance of her falling sick and everything, they've come closer together, and that love or that attraction that comes with them at that point became, you know, one of the poster shots. So we actually, at that time, we didn't realize that that would be something that we would use on the poster, but something about it looked and looked, because I looked and it's like, you know, take your time, let's do this. So we actually stopped, you know, not stop shoot, but we took like maybe about 20 minutes, 15 minutes more, where he gave me that time. I got my tripod out, we you know, increased the light a little bit more. So sometimes, you know, as a photographer, you feel very intimidated on asking for that time, or asking for, you know, can I get a little more light, or can I get a little more, you know, what do I think if this will happen. And sometimes it's okay to take that chance and ask. And you never know what might happen. You know, either you'll get shut down and say, no, we don't have time. Grab what you can, or you might have somebody who will be supportive enough, say, okay, you know, maybe you're right. Okay, let's do this. Maybe we can quickly go. Okay, we set up somewhere else. You do this right now. So that happened, and so sometimes it works out while you're shooting. You recognize something that is giving you that, and I think for a lot of films, it becomes like that. Sometimes you recognize on set immediately, and then sometimes you have a sense that you think maybe on the script level you'll be able to get that, or you feel that will be a good image. Like I think even on Sacred Games, we weren't sure what would be there, but I think that shot of Saif with the gun and that blood splatter, it became the first look of that. You know, I thought it would have been another image. In fact, you know, I thought it was another one in the tunnel where he's bandaged up and he's got the gun out and everything. But the one that resonated with like an entire look, you know, this is what I thought could be, you know, there. But the one that actually happened was a more dramatic, straight face, blood splatter, which just, you know, stayed with the film and I mean stayed with the series and was synonymous with it. So I think it'll come with time. It comes with doing a lot of shoots that are there, and somewhere you have to, you can try something and then maybe it does work, and sometimes it may not work. Sometimes it'll be the absolute, you know, opposite of what you may think. There are times that it doesn't work. Like there are times that I remember for Tararampam, I wanted a shot for the poster. There was a silhouette shot of Saif in a tunnel, you know, and he was sort of exiting on Tararampam, he was exiting the stadium or entering the stadium, you know, for getting back to the field. And I remember they were looking at a teaser shot, and I remember feeling that I wish we used this as a teaser, you know, to this one, you know, sort of bring about the emotion of who he is or unknown, and you know, let it be sort of a mystery. But the studio didn't want that. They wanted something more commercial, more bright, visible, and then you go with it. You go with it, and then you use these for your portfolio later.
Thank you, Shefali. Thank you for asking that really nice, involved question. I hope you got your answer.
I know, I hope you did.
Can we unmute Kanav Kapoor, please? I love the color of Kanav's t-shirt.
Thank you.
Go for it,
Hello,
Kanav.
Hello, ma'am. So my question basically was, how do you differentiate on the set between the actor and the character that he's playing? Like when you get the photograph of in hand, how do you differentiate between a Paki and a Sonakshi Sinha? So what goes behind it?
Yeah, really interesting actually, because actors are really good. They switch on and switch off so fast. I mean, there are times that you'll be shooting, and the moment there's a cut, they're off. They're not anymore, or they're not there. But a really good actor will do that for you. So like I was telling, he's not there, but I was telling him before about how you sort of are there for rehearsals. You're there for some of the prep work. You're there for the takes, so that you can get what you can while filming is going on simultaneously, as long as you're not sort of disrupting shoot or a problem of whatever. But the other thing that you can do is ask. You set it up with the first AD a little later, and you ask them to recreate that moment for stills. So you don't have camera rolling, but you say, can we do this again for stills? Now, one is you can do just the pose. So one is like, two actors will come together, and whether they're at the scene of looking at each other or kissing or fighting or whatever, they'll do it and they hold that pose. And that's where the character's not there. It's the actor. So you have to actually ask them and get your AD to help you in saying that, can we recreate that moment? So you run by the scene again, if you can. You run by the part that you want, and you run by it, and you ask them to go through it and go through the dynamics of the scene again for stills. So you move with them, and if it's an action sequence, or if it's something that's a lot more in motion, then you'll have to sort of be prepared to move around a little bit. But if it's something that's sort of there, you call action and you say, okay, can we do this again? And so stand by, and your first AD should be able to help you out, and he'll say, not roll camera, but he'll say, okay, action, and then your actors have to sort of perform. So something like this is difficult. It's on the fly. I'm not. They're gonna throw me out of set if I ask them to do this again. So again, this I was also going mad because there's a camera on the other side which is looking at this direction. There's a bike that's coming out. There's another second camera here. So I'm trying to hide where the second camera is because I'm like, अगर ये कैमरा सेकंड कैमरा को देखेगा then at least they'll say second camera in frame and उसके पीछे photographer है, so I won't get killed first, so you safeguard yourself and keep your distance there. But the other thing is recreate the scene again. Ask them if they can go through the entire process again, and I think we did that a couple of times for like I had to do it with Ranveer and Sonakshi once for like a fight sequence they were doing, because sometimes there's too many people on set. There's a camera, there's a sound guy, there's a focus puller, there's there's a grip fellow making sure the camera guy doesn't fall, and the director's there behind with the pterodactyl or whatever, and then sometimes you're doing 360 degrees, and I get laughing fits in 360 degrees, I mean, it's like it's funny, everybody's running round and round like this, so how much are you gonna hide, like at some point you're just doing this, so you'll have to sort of find your way eventually and ask them to sort of recreate it in short, and sometimes they'll do that. And if you can always ask them, say, can we try it this way, can we try it a little more slower, can we try it a little more subtle, and then they realize that maybe they've been just acting it out and it's not them in per se getting into character. But if it's a really good actors and they're really keen to perform and some of them love stills, they'll do it again for you, and they'll give it 100% with that feeling. But some you'll know when they're not.
Best of luck, Kanav. And thanks for that lovely question. The last person's, it's the last question that's been asked. So I would request Priyanka Shah's audio to be unmuted, please. Hi, Priyanka.
Hi. So firstly, I just want to say that I love the stills for Lootera. They were like insane. And every time I see the stills, every time I put it on Instagram, I feel the desperate need to go watch the film again. But my question is, as for your process as a still photographer on a film, is there some sort of pre-planning you do in terms of the mood you want to capture and aesthetic you want to create when you look at your series of photos at the end, or is it something that's intuitive on set that you go and shoot on the spot and then later when you're looking at them you're like, oh, this is the mood that has been created, this is the aesthetic that I'm going for? So is it something that you pre-plan, or is it something that you come up with once you look at them as a whole?
Yeah, so so to be honest, it changes project to project. There are times that I've worked on projects. So say it's a film with Vikram, because he's home with me, because he's somebody that we talk a lot with each other about what he's planning. I'm kind of in his head. I know what he's looking for. I know what he's striving for, and I think I am. And then at least while I'm getting into it, I already kind of visually get a sense of what I want to do with it, and that's in terms of maybe the approach, maybe the kind of lenses I would use, and I'm always listening to what gear your camera department is using for the scenes. So sometimes they're going with a lot of lenses that are flaring. So then I know that there's some drama to that. So I go in with that intention of making sure that I get some of that in some of the shots. And it's difficult because it's flare means focus, means background and all of those things. So there's a lot at stake, but when you get it, and then it really works for you. So if I'm able to know what the camera department and director and the DOP are trying to do with the film, it gives me a lot more, um, a lot more of an advantage to get into before we shoot or even on set. There's that aspect of documenting on shoot. On while I'm shooting, also there's a sense of the way I'm exposing, which is not always what the DOP is doing. Sometimes, I mean, if I keep doing what he's doing, sometimes I might have just like dark images with nothing to see, and then it's really hard. You've got grain, you've got your shadows and everything, and how much are you going to lift it up, and the visibility is like really low. There's a sense of finding the ways to work around it, how you can get that image to maybe look and work on a still basis, which may look different on a moving image. So I might lift it up a little more. I might expose differently. I also have a sense of, like you're saying, aesthetic is a sense of the color grading. I love color correcting a lot of my images myself. I mean, I do, and that's because I've gone in shooting it the way I would think I want it to look, and I come back and then I play around a little bit on the laptop, and I see my own images to see what works, and I'll take it this way and I'll take it that way. So I play around with a lot of that as well on my own. And in some cases, what I don't know, like, I mean, if it's a project where I'm going on set and I'm figuring it out, but then I would do the same. I kind of listen in to conversations about, what they're having, about the gear they're using, what camera. And now with digital, there's a lot more that you can play with on post, aesthetically. But initially on film, when I was shooting film, I would find out what stock the cameraman was using, what film stock he's using, what is he shooting daylight, is he shooting tungsten, is he shooting day for night, or what is it? Because otherwise I'll end up with the wrong film for the wrong light condition, and my grade is going to be completely off. So that used to be one thing that you had to sort of be aware for, and you had to sort of have stock of maybe tungsten film if they were shooting with a certain kind of stock as well. So and then that film was different. Film you have to scan, film you have to you would still use a computer to sort of play around with later, or then on the process of painting, like we'd be in the dark room and change around, as much as you could. But I think knowing a certain sense of tone as well. Like I remember one of the times I did a song sequence for a film, Teen Patti, I think it was, and a scene was shooting, and I graded them a certain way, and I brought the images back to them, and he just loved it, and he said, I think I'm gonna, I want to shoot the film like this, the entire film. So it's interesting to have an opinion, to have a certain way of knowing what you want to do as well. And then, of course, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And somebody tell you that take the sign away, or take
Ishika, there is one of my favorite DOPs is on YouTube watching this session, Siddharth Diwan. And he has a question for you. And he's saying, Siddharth, first of all, I just want to tell you that we've not had a single DOP on DialMForFilms. So one tight slap to me. I hope you agree to come on one of the sessions. So I'm saying this right now that we need to do a session with you, Siddharth. His question to you, Ishika, is that what kind of light levels do you expect from the DOP?
Tell him what, give him 2 slaps. I know what he's doing purposely.
What are your expectations? The nation wants to know.
I want light. I just want light, not darkness. Oh my God, they are just really hard. Yeah, like I remember. Half of it is like, I mean, I don't even have the dial on how much am I going to push this film. I was like, your ISOs earlier could go to like only 32, 3200 or whatever, 6400. How much more are you going to take it up? And now, of course, with digital, you can take it up a lot more. But there are times I'm like pushing the film from like, it's a 400 ISO that when you were shooting film, you're shooting, I'm pushing 3 stops, it's to 3200. Hi, Kira. So,
Who's here? Okay.
Say hi to him and go bye. Say hi and then go bye.
Hi, Kira.
Okay, bye. Smithy.
That's the person who put Gillian Anderson in a good mood. I'm so sorry. I had to bring it up. I was like, okay, you were saying. Sorry.
Like a little light where I'm not shooting at like point under 1.2, where I'm breaking the bank trying to get lenses to open up as much, because Devan just thinks that we thoda dark karenge, halka sa, you know, and all of those things. But yeah, I would love it. A 2 would be amazing. 2 would be like glorious. 2 would be like sunshine if you would open.
Ishika,
he was assistant second AC, I think, to the cameraman on The Forest in 2005, and we've known each other since then. That's fine.
Ishika, I have one question. Of course, इतने सारे पूछ लिए हैं, लेकिन फिर भी बहुत सारे सवाल हैं. But I'll ask you one question before I request Meghna to unmute Swaratmika. But I wanted to just ask you that, you know, everyone's crazy about black and white. And you're one person who loves colored. So first of all, what is the, like, how do you decide, like, what does black and white bring to the table as opposed to colored, and how does one decide, like, how does one take that call that they want this or that?
So I think, I mean, I love both. I sometimes think black and white can be an easy way to hide the flaw, or to hide the distractions that are there, and hide and make an image prettier because it's black and white, because it suddenly sort of starts narrowing things down and moving things that are not really of concern, and popping into your eyes, and it sort of narrows the entire frame down to what your subject is. But having said that, the image has to work for being a black and white. And there are times that I've shot something in color with the intention of maybe, you know, in post taking it back to black and white, and then it doesn't work. It doesn't work because there's a certain sense and there's a certain reason of maybe how I shot it also, the lens you use, the color palette that's working for it in the entire frame. And if I shift it to black and white, then it starts to get monotone. It starts to just be flat without any sort of reference either. So it needs to be color. It needs to be color, so it can tell the story that it really is trying to tell. But color now, I mean, I don't use that much film. I'm not using film at all. And most of the stuff I do on is post, you know, if it's there are some images that just work in color. There are certain films that work in color. Even if working stills don't work in black and white. It doesn't bring about anything, and especially like sometimes your night sequences or anything, they don't work in black and white unless there's a certain mood. I mean, something like this, the color, if I'd done this in black and white, there would be nothing staring out at me. You know, nothing is sort of grabbing my attention and highlighting anything. I mean, there's the silhouettes, it's the edge light that you get a sense of. And I've tried doing this, you know, in some images also. Tried taking it into black and white and putting it there. But certain things work in black and white. Because sometimes color can be a distraction also. And if you want to sort of center the story and get it down to a center, then that's when you sort of take it into black and white and bring about your attention to that particular thing. So, like in Lootera, I've done some of the working scenes in black and white. But because I felt that image worked better in black and white than it had in color. I thought there was too much happening around in color, so I kind of narrowed down and centered it. And of course, because it's period film, it gives it a lot more attention, you know, like this. And this is pretty in color also, but it's just stunning in black and white.
It's just beautiful.
You know, feel also to it, and an era, and sort of takes you back a certain way. I totally feel it depends on the image that's there. Sorry.
Thank you, Ishika. I want to unmute. Oh, the other child in the family is also. Oh, both the children in the family are there with you. How lovely. I think you need to spend time with them. Thank you so much for giving us time. But Swaratmika, who's a producer in the industry, she's been, I don't know whether the two of you know each other, but she's worked with Yash Raj. Swaratmika wants to say something. Can we unmute her, please?
Hello. Hi, how are you? We have not directly worked with each other, but we've known each other for many years. And in fact, I want to compliment you on few things. One is when I was consulting with Sanjay Bansali, this was post Devdas, and we had a huge session on all your making, stills, because I felt that in those stills, I felt they were navras, because all your pictures are not about commercial, and as I say, poster or things like that. There's an emotion, there's drama, there is a making of all the chaos, there is stillness. So we had this one amazing, and then I come to Yash Raj, and then I see Veer-Zaara. So I was like, oh wow. And I was like, for you and me, we're like, going through all the pictures, and while we were making that book. And I remember we would sit in the nights and we would just go on. And I was like, why was I not there on Veer-Zaara to make this? Because I thought you did a great job on Veer-Zaara. And I remember, and by the way, Smriti, the one she's talking about, Yashraj buying the camera, I was sitting in that meeting and we were having this argument. Why
So now we know
Yashraj
who bought the camera.
Yes. Because I just joined in as production, right? So production is having this argument. Why do we need to own this? Like kind of a thing.
Buy
right?
the camera.
But, yeah, the camera. And that's how the lenses had come down to these two things, right? But as she said, it was worth an argument, and Yashraj, we used it for many years and stuff like that. And for Tara Rampam, because I was also supervising producer on that, and I remember sitting with our publicity team and everything, and I came from Bharat Bala, right? So for me, that tunnel shot of Saif was the poster. And then we having this argument with the team and saying the commercial one needs to be there. And Ishika is like sitting there very quietly and nodding her head. And she's like, she's looking at me and we're looking at each other and just sipping our coffee because the debate is going nowhere. So yes, I just wanted to compliment Ishika for saying that her stills are beautiful. They're a story by itself. And in fact, I've always told her whenever I met her that I would see her actually becoming a beautiful cinematographer or even a director, because I can see that these images or as I again go back to saying, it's the rust, it's the emotion, what she captures. It's mind blowing. It's a story itself. You can make a book, you can do an exhibition, you can do many things, and a digital hug to you, my love. And yes, I also will be behind you, and I hope we work more. And yeah, so I just wanted to compliment you on that.
Thank you,
Saramika. Thank you. Already many things. Actor bhi hai. Ab let's hope ki kuch aur, cinematographer, director. But no pressure. We are really happy, Ishika, that you stuck around, because your images are just gorgeous. And more than gorgeous, like everybody said, everybody who was on the session, everybody who joined us on YouTube, more than just being gorgeous, they tell a story. They document, the hard work of the people who work behind the camera. They evoke a sense of emotion that the maker wants to incite in the audience. And they archive and catalog and do so many things. And it's such an important job. I just hope more and more people recognize it for what it is. And really, really grateful that you gave us this much time, and your insight is so useful. I will get in touch with you after this session to at least get a cheat sheet from you that we can put out with the module, where you can just tell us the first level things that a still photographer should buy. Basic level things that should be with you, that are not, the investment is not tremendous, because I think there's no knowledge, there's no place where you can go for this kind of knowledge where that, okay, fine, these 5 things at least I need to have in my kit today. Right? And the rest of it can evolve, and I can figure that out. What are the kind of first level things that a still photographer needs? So thank you, Ishika. I would request everyone to plug in next week on Thursday. We have another amazing woman who's going to be on DialM. Can we have the creative, please? It's editor Prerna Sehgal. Another really quiet person who's amazing at her job, and she's talking about something that I have no idea about. So I need to go. And when Prerna told me she wants to talk about this, I said, I think it's useful. I think we need to speak about it. But then you know what? You take it away from me because I have no idea what you're talking about. So I have a lot of studying to do. And I'm going to listen to Prerna very intently when she comes on and does this. So thank you guys. Plug in. Thank you again, Ishika. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I'm going to see you next Thursday. Bye. Bye, Ishika. Bye, everyone.